Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome to today's video. It is once again time to cover my progress in the Cursed City. And unfortunately for me, this one's going to be rather brief because we did not make it very far, because this is one of the rotations where S6 is the bane of my existence on hard, so we were hard stuck and couldn't really get anywhere in Soulcross. But nonetheless, I did beat a stage that I hadn't been able to beat before by building up a couple of new champions, so we'll talk about that alongside some of the other stages that we cleared. So normally this would be the part where I talk about normal and how I progressed and completed everything, but at the time of this recording, I have not yet finished all the way through. It's more of just a time gauge, not that I can't do it. I most certainly can, being in the end game, but there just hasn't been enough days in this rotation for me to actually have completed it by the time of this recording. But nonetheless, I do expect to finish all of normal just as before. And for hard, you can see that I've already completed all of the lower 3 stages, that being Plague Home, Dead Rise, and Cobble Market. And I also beat Amius on both difficulties, so I'll highlight those teams as well. So without further ado, let's dive into my lack of progression into Soulcross, starting off with stage 1. We have a pretty strong combination of control between Astralon with the AoE stun, as well as Killian the Lucky with his AoE block active skills. Both of those champions are unbooked on my account, but the 75% clip from the raw unbooked state is enough, given enough tries to happen to land the CC debuffs across all the waves. Rondo can also help with that because she can block active skills and passives on her A2. And then Elhain is a nice stun set, and then DPS from Wallmaster Athorion. For stage 2, we ran this team where we have a naked champion who's basically Hefrak bait. So whenever she dies, we get a free AoE from Hefrak. We have a little bit of control from Countess Lix with the block active skills on AoE. Granted, she is also unbooked, so it is a super long cooldown. So I think she only got to use it on wave 1 and wave 3, just through the cycling of abilities. And then Allure, kind of a little bit of control as well. Turn meter control, of course, on her A1, but also the AoE decreased defense she can play can also apply sleep, which can be a nice soft form of CC. And then Ultimate Gaelic is the secondary DPS for the squad, with Hefrak being the primary DPS. For stage 3, this is the one that I couldn't beat before, but I finally built up all the champions to beat it. And we used Bistafis, AoE block active skills, and decreased defense. We have Thylesi in the team, who's notably in a stun set, another form of AoE decreased defense. Mountain King is in there because he's a pretty decent, hard-hitting single target nuker. Lady Aresh, honestly, very surprising. I'd always heard that she hits relatively hard, but she did some work on this stage for sure, with AoE attack as well as a decent amount of single target damage, self-buffing for increased attack as well. And then Soul Drinker was pretty nice as well, AoE bombs, and a little bit of decreasing the duration of bombs as well. So I'm proud of myself. I'm happy that we were able to do this without having to use the Candyman, the dreaded champion who I will never build because I hate him so much. For stage 4, we got to abuse Vlad once again with the AoE block active skills and basically just control the waves. And then Visix, also with the AoE provoke, could do a similar job. Lydia's helping debuff, and Mithrala, of course, is just a great support. Ramontu can also buff strip and block passive, which was pretty handy, especially when we got to the Yumiko stage on wave 3. Stage 5 is the Iron Twins, basically just sat there under poisons. We got the passive from Aox extending poisons, we have Venom H placing poisons and activating them, and then Python's there to keep everyone alive and running. So we kind of just let that run on auto, and however long it took, maybe 5 minutes or so, in order to get past it. And with that, we return to stage 6, where I just do not have enough DPS. I'm considering building up a Tarshan here. I do have him at 5-star. I could max him out. I'm not going to try it for this rotation. I think, I'm going to enjoy my holiday, or I am enjoying my holiday at the time of this recording. So I'm not going to worry about it this time around. But of course, we're going to see this stage 6 again eventually. So I do want to come up with a solution in the future. So he's one option that I'm looking at too, in terms of maybe instead of Hellborn Sprite, we could bring him in, do a little bit more damage. But I'm also kind of curious if anyone else has Gamaran on their team, or on their account rather. I'm curious to see if he can be effective after the buff, because he has like that AoE all buff steal, which sounds very useful now. And so I might want to try him out, but again, I'm not going to do it for this rotation, just a lack of time. But I'm curious to see, or to know, if anyone has had some success with Gamaran after the buff in this particular iteration of Soulcross. For my Amius team on hard, it's a pretty straightforward comp. I believe this is the equivalent for rotation 1, but we have a Brimstone Champion in Aosta Dreamsong, so that's a fairly reliable land rate, and so that's a big chunk of our DPS. Heal Reduction Champion, of course, is Venomage. Then we have a trifecta of support between the Python with the healing and revival, Mithrala with the cleansing and the shielding and the strengthen to help us take less damage, specifically Venomage, take less damage on Form 2 of Amius, and then Owella with her passive. She can put out a ridiculous amount of continuous heals and also help keep the team alive. Owella is also nice because she has some buffs that will force Amius to do the right rotation when he switches over to Form 2, with that being the increased resistance that will turn it into decreased resistance, and then Aosta Dreamsong can also do the same thing with the increased attack being turned into decreased attack. So just keep that in mind if Amius is not doing the right things when you try to fight him. And then on normal mode, we have this super fun comp where effectively Riho Bonespear is our heal reduction champion. As long as you set it up right and she has the lowest amount of HP, she'll try to heal herself right before he changes forms. So he'll transform her continuous heals that she places on herself into heal reduction, but her passive will proc and reflect it onto the boss, and thus he will place it on himself and not be able to heal up. So basically, once that is set in motion, Harima is our tank in Form 2 with the 6 stars of Awakening plus her passive, meaning she's basically impossible to kill, and then everyone else is just enabling some damage along the way so that we kill it with physical damage when he transforms back into Form 1. In terms of the Sintranos-Built Champions, we do have a couple to highlight this time around, namely being those featured in the ones used for Stage 3, Lady Arash and Soul Drinker being freshly built, as in I built them from scratch, and then I had to rebuild Bistivus a little bit, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. So starting off with Lady Arash, she's in a smattering of gear that's enabling a bit of her damage, some Cruel, some Perception, and some crit rate, because it was hard to crit cap her, because like I've said in previous videos, I'm running out of gear to build a bunch of nukers for the Cursed City, and I don't like muling gear around, so I try to make sure that all the champions have a unique build. That way I don't have to worry about who has which gear set and where has it gone, and then every champion can do every single stage every time because they have the same exact gear. But I digress. So you can see there's still a fair amount of level 15 gear because I'm holding off until some sort of artifact enhancement event in the future, but nonetheless she was able to do the job. Her total stats are as follows: 37,000 on the HP, 4,800 on the attack, 221 on the speed, full crit rate 224 on the crit damage, and then we don't really care about her accuracy or resistance because she doesn't really place any debuffs. And as it goes for basically all of my Cursed City champions, there are no masteries to be found. Soul Drinker is next, and I have him in a very unique build with the triple Cruel set. So I'm indexing more into attack just because he's not an arena champion for me, so I don't necessarily need him in a bunch of perception to have a super high accuracy. Instead, I'm trying to maximize the damage I can get out of his bomb. So triple Cruel and a little bit of Merciless for the bonus of the attack, and that equates to a total stat set of 42,000 on the HP, 6,300 on the attack, 240 on the speed, and then 300 on the accuracy, which is enough to land his bombs against the people in the Cursed City. And then lastly, we have Bistifis in Divine Offense and Immunity, because there was an annoying Hegemon on Wave 2 of Stage 3, and the easiest thing I could think to do was to have him in Immunity, such that when we came around to Wave 2, he could never be locked out by the Hegemon, and so he could open with the AoE ability with a decreased defense as well as the block active skills, and hopefully with enough RNG, 75% chance to land, we would just take over the fight and they wouldn't be able to do anything on Wave 2, and then we can get through on to Wave 3, rinse and repeat, and clear it out. And his stats are as follows: 30,000 on the HP, 5,000 on the attack, 223 on the speed, 95 on the crit rate, so a little bit shy, but that's just the nature of trying to force him into immunity gear, which is just not that great on my account. The better pieces are on more important champions. 198 on the crit damage, and then 323, which is enough accuracy to land it on enemies in the Cursed City. So yeah, not much more to say about my progression into this rotation of the Cursed City. S6 continues to be the bane of my existence, but like I said, let me know if you guys have had success with either Tarshan or buffed Gamran, because I'm curious to try them out. I don't have much else better to do than max out champions for the purposes of trying to beat the Cursed City as much as possible. Perks of being in the endgame. Let me know in the comment section down below how far you were able to get in this rotation of the Cursed City. As always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below. It really does help out the channel. And if you are enjoying the content on this channel, then feel free to hit that subscribe button down below as well for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.